Rev up your engines! A guy by the name of Jeremy is claiming that used car values will soon crash. Like I said, don't buy a used car now, wait. Well, he's saying it's going to happen to crash relatively soon. Because if you look at it, in the last year, used car prices have sailed 54% up. It's an awful big climb in a short period of time. The thing is, demand has exceeded supply. You got kind of a bunch of different factors working that this guy may be totally right that the prices will soon come crashing down. One of the reasons that used car prices went up, especially good ones, later model ones, is because supply in new cars was very limited. Now that supply is coming back out. They're building more cars, right? When there's more new cars, prices of the used cars, that'll start dropping down because people say, I'm not going to pay all that money for a used car. I can get a new one for almost the same price, which is what my son did. He bought a brand new Toyota Sienna because the used ones were within $1,000 or $2,000 of a brand new one, and they were 4 or 5 years old with 30 to 50,000 miles on them. It made no sense to buy a used one then. People are starting to wise up when they go to one of these places like CarMax or whatever, Carvana, that their prices are way too high. They just keep jacking it up because they're a corporation too, and they keep squeezing as much as they can to see how much they can have. When there's a limited supply, they're going to take advantage of you and charge way too much for the stuff. It'll catch up to them because it's gotten to a point of absurdity. This guy gives an example that a guy in New York, a cop in New York, purchased a Tacoma in 2019 for $35,500. He drove it for 30,000 miles, sold it to Carvana for $32,860. Then Carvana sold it for $41,990, which was $6,500 more than the policeman paid for the truck brand new. These things can't go on forever. It's just a fantasy. It's just a total fantasy. We got into a bubble. What happens to all bubbles? Eventually, they burst. As an example, this guy says that Tacoma that they sold for more money than what was new. He predicts that by next year, it's going to depreciate $20,000 in 12 months as the prices go down. It's like a game of hot potato. You don't want to be the last one holding the hot potato. You lose the game, right? So basically, he's saying, and I tend to agree with him, 57% rise in the price of used cars. And of course, the poor people that paid more money for these used cars, they're going to be totally upside down when the bubble pops. Like the guy who paid $5,000, $6,000 more than the car was new and it was a used car with 30,000 miles on it. They're the ones that are going to be messed up. And I agree with Jeremy, because if you buy a car now and the bubble bursts, you're going to be so upside down in that car and you'll have paid too much money for the car. Just like real estate, same thing. It's in a bubble in many places now. And if you buy at the height and it bursts and you got a note and you paid $600,000 for a house and then the bubble goes and they go down to $400,000, basically you just lost $200,000. Doesn't matter what the interest rate is. Don't ever pay at the high point. That's a big mistake. Volvo is going to produce new Polestar 3 electric SUVs in South Carolina. The Chinese have bought Volvo. Well, their division Geely, who's involved in this Polestar electric car, they're going to be making them in the United States. They're going to be luxury SUVs. The Polestar 3 is going to be a luxury SUV, of course, to compete with Model Y. And they're going to make them in Charleston, South Carolina. They're also going to make Volvos in Charleston, South Carolina, put them together there too. Now, Polestar was formed in 2017, a combination of Volvo and Geely Holding Company, big Chinese company. And they plan on building them in 2022. It'll be the first Volvo-made electric car built in the United States. And they say it's going to be on the same platform as the Volvo XC90. So it's a very popular SUV platform that people have, and it'll be electric. So instead of starting all over from scratch, being tied in with Volvo, they got a long history behind them, and they're basically just electrifying it. Now, this April, Polestar announced they got $550 million in investments from people, so people are serious about this. This isn't really a startup. It's Volvo and Geely making electric cars in South Carolina. Now, of course, as far as I'm concerned, I think a lot of people are rushing into this electric car thing, and of course, this is the luxury one. They're trying the same thing that Tesla did. Oh, let's make luxury electric cars. If you're the rich people, they don't care. They'll spend money. I don't know about that one, because I know a lot of rich people, and they're very tight with their money. And just because they think, oh, they're rich, they're going to buy this, doesn't mean that they're going to. They're pushing this electric thing to its limit, if you ask me. Notice the still going to be building regular Volvos too, they say there. They're hedging their bet on that one. They're not putting all their eggs in one basket. Be making regular Volvos there too, they said, man, to put them together. You know, they're not actually manufacturing them. It's an assembly plant. That's one of the tricks that they get away with stuff. They say, well, they're built here. Well, they're put together there. The components are all coming from China, of course. So Dune says, I got a 94 four-cylinder Chrysler that burns oil and coolant. It's got 250,000 miles. I paid $1,200. It runs like a clock. It burns oil every 2 months and loses coolant. Should I attempt to fix it or drive it till the engine fails? Okay, here's what you want to do. For the oil burning, just keep adding oil. The coolant, you want to figure out why. I have it pressure tested. Do my video, how to fix an overheating car engine, because if you didn't have the coolant, of course, it would overheat. Maybe it's just leaking somewhere. Could be a simple fix. Water pump might be dripping. You'd want to fix that. Let's say it's the head gasket starting to blow. And in the end of that video, you can see, or you can watch my video, how to tell if your head gasket's blown. If it is starting to blow, you got to tear the whole engine apart. I just say drive it until it drops, then replace the engine, because you were saying you're willing to replace the engine, then replace the engine there. It's got 250,000 miles. Eventually, everything wears out. Larry Good says, which truck should I buy? I'm looking to buy a late model used F-150 4x4. What are the pros and cons? If I were you, I would stick totally to a naturally aspirated V8 engine. I would not buy any of the EcoBoost with the V6 with twin turbos and GDI fuel injection. They've had problems as they age, and you're buying a used vehicle. You want the most dependable one you can get. Get a V8 naturally aspirated one. Doesn't matter this gas module. The V6 get better gas mileage, blah, blah. You're getting a 4x4. It's going to be a gas hog anyways, and you're going to pull stuff probably. You pull stuff, you get worse gas mileage. There's no way out of it. Doesn't matter what kind of engine is in it. It's a big, heavy truck. You're pulling heavy weights. It's going to get bad gas mileage. Get a naturally aspirated V8. Stay away from those boosted ones with twin turbos and V6, because those engines have problems anyways as they age, as do the turbos. Get a V8, you got a better engine, you got no turbo. It'll last the longest. And being used, it should be in the best shape. You don't know how the previous person took care of it. A V8, they can take a lot of abuse. A twin turbo EcoBoost V6? No. They can't. Amiro 15 says, I got an engine light on my Honda Odyssey. I bought a 2010 Odyssey with 174,000 miles. Mechanic said the oil's low. He changed the oil and brakes and rotors. I drove it less than 50 miles. Check engine light came on with VSA. But the car still drives good. What could it be? All right, understand. Check engine lights come on for many reasons. The way those things are set up, if your check engine light comes on, it often turns off the vehicle's speed system, the VSA. That whole system will automatically be shut off because that's just a software thing. So you got to get it scanned, see what the check engine light is. Pray it's something simple. There are many generic reasons. You could have a loose gas cap, you could have a vacuum leak, lots of things could be wrong. It seems to me that you probably got ripped off though. You got 174,000 miles and you drove less than 50 miles and the check engine light came on. They probably just reset the check engine light and then now it's come back on. The mechanic you had look at it wasn't a very good mechanic because he should have put on a heavy duty scan tool and he could see miles since check engine light was reset. And if it said 1, 2, 5, 10 miles, they had reset the check engine light, and it's not going to come back until you drive it a little and it sees the problem. You probably got ripped off. And you can go anywhere, get it scanned, go to ScottyKilmer.com, a website where I answer questions for you, give the code, and I can analyze it further there. Jan's Pretty Blue 94 Celica says, I've had this car for 16 years. The left tail light is out. The bulb broke. I can't get the bulb out. What can I do? It's corroded inside. The bulb broke when you tried to get it out. What you do is you get some needle nose pliers. You grab the inside and you twist and twist and twist and try to pull it out. Now sometimes they're so corroded you have to buy a new socket assembly. You don't have to buy the whole taillight assembly. You can buy just the socket, any place, AutoZone, O'Reilly, whatever. You can get a universal socket and then you just splice the two wires going into it together and pop it in. You can do that. It's not that bad. And sometimes if they don't fit, you can put them in and put a little silicone sealer around them so water doesn't get inside. That can easily be done. Now, let's say you twist, you can't get it out. Spray some WD-40 in there overnight. Let it soak, let it get all the corrosion out, and then twist it. It will eventually come out. Now, if you can't get it out, you could break the whole socket off, like I say, and you can buy an aftermarket socket, because if it's that corroded, you might not be able to reuse the socket anyways. It could be all gummed out inside. If it's not too bad when you get it out, you can get some light sandpaper, sand it all down, then spray it with spray electrical cleaner, and then dry it all out, and then put a new one in with some little dielectric grease to keep it from corroding anymore. But a lot of times you have to buy another socket. It's not that big of a deal buying a universal socket and sticking it in though. If push comes to shove and it's all rotten, you can't use it over. Scott Smith says, Is an oil filter change adding oil truth or rubbish? Before I put my new oil filter in, I add as much oil as possible because I have a vertical one. Figure the more oil, the better. Is pre-filling it a good practice or is it complete nonsense? Today it's complete nonsense because immediately oil's pumped up to your engine when you crank it. A lot of it bypasses the filter and goes right up to the top of the engine. And if you look at many modern designs, the oil filter is actually upside down. And so when you turn the car off, they pretty much drain out anyways. You'd have to quick fill it up and take it off, fill it up, turn it on every time you started the car if that was the case. They've got so many bypass things in them now that it doesn't make any difference at all. If you're a fanatic and you want to put it in, go right ahead, but there's no reason to anymore. Now, if you got, you know, a 1940s, 50s, 60s car, yeah, sure, you might as well. They were not made quite as well, but today they're designed that the oil automatically goes up to the cams. It doesn't all go right through the filter. You're not hurting anything. And like I said, if that was true, you'd have to fill them up every time after it's sat overnight because a lot of them are upside down. They drain back into the car. You know, if you got an upside down one, when you change your oil first thing in the morning, if you don't start the car, you'll take it off. There's no oil in it. That's the best time to change it because then you don't get oil splashing all over the place. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.